We'll be covering the first portion of the infectious disease slides for general medical class. So if we were in class together, I would pause here and appreciate the fact that you guys, your group of students are more informed about pandemics and infectious disease probably more than anybody else because you guys lived right through a very influential time of your lives during COVID. And so, it's interesting. Infectious disease, it takes the stage at different levels across different groups, but thoughts and opinions and ideas about infectious disease amongst your guys' cohort and peers, you guys had the opportunity to study up close infectious disease at levels that I did not. And so anyway, it's kind of interesting. As far as infectious diseases go, transmission, common routes of transmission. They're airborne, direct contact, bloodborne, or through water or food. Sanitary precautions are the most important line of defense in preventing illness by far, right? So I would include eating well and getting enough sleep. But outside of that, right, that washing your hands, wearing clean clothes, avoiding contact with the disease or the pathogens is the best way to prevent illness. Okay, so best practices down here. This is the notes: hygiene, hand washing, not sharing drinks or utensils, coughing into your arm or hands or nothing at all, etc. Practice universal precautions and sanitation measures. Good personal hygiene is also critical. When I worked at the high school, something that I did, because a high school is just a petri dish. It's a petri dish of sickness, and students are constantly coming to school sick. And so something I used to do that I think was good was as soon as I got home, I would usually change my shirt. I would usually wash my hands and my face really well, and especially during those months where there was a lot of sick students around. I think a little bit of prevention went a long way in that case. So simple practice of hand washing with soap and water can deter an infection or disease. And then proper nutrition and rest to help keep the body resistant, so important. Additionally, some of the infectious diseases we'll talk about have some vaccines. Vaccines are a great thing, and we'll talk about, there's a few infectious diseases that we're supposed to cover today that it's almost funny to talk about them in the United States because they are essentially non-existent because of vaccines. So anyway, some of these you can be annually immunized. So for example, like for the flu, you can get your annual flu shot. I know there's a COVID shot now, but I also noticed that on the COVID vaccine, they have continued to update the guidelines as the research has met the needs. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. It'd be kind of interesting to have that discussion in class with you guys. So anyway, here's a few of the vaccines and then when we might get them. Okay. As far as adults go, here's a few of the vaccines that are recommended to us. So green is recommended, blue is maybe recommended, and then across the age. Notice some of these don't come in till later, like the shingles for chickenpox, right? And some come in earlier, human papillomavirus, mumps, measles, rubella, etc. I did not have a chickenpox vaccine growing up. I got it when I was young. I know that a lot of you guys, I asked, have had the chickenpox vaccine. So chickenpox will soon be a thing of the past. This here, so herd immunity, just by way of, like I said, I realize that you guys have probably thought about this more than most of your similar cohorts that have been growing up. You grew up in it. So this is just a demographic. Since COVID, I've seen these graphics pop up all over the place, and I think sometimes they're useful. So when a contagious disease enters an unvaccinated group, many members are infected because they lack immunity against the disease. So many members of the group get infected if there's no vaccination, right? But if we have a group of vaccinated, when a large percentage of the population is vaccinated, the spread of disease is limited. This indirectly protects unimmunized individuals because including those who can't be vaccinated and those for whom vaccination was not successful. This is the principle of herd immunity. So notice here within the vaccinated group, we get a lot of people out here on the edge that get sick, but inside of the vaccinated group, they'll kind of protect those people who don't get vaccinated or the vaccine wasn't as effective. And then if we have breaks, if we have gaps, then it can create those gaps, right? And then the other thing I want to mention on vaccines that's kind of interesting, and COVID helped bring this to light a little bit, but the more sickness that's around, even if you've been vaccinated, right? The more sickness that's around, the higher the chance your body has of being infected by something, even potentially in a vaccinated individual where the vaccine was only 70% effective or 60 or 7, whatever, but it wasn't 100% effective. The more that's around, the more chance that individual stands of becoming sick. So it's kind of interesting. So we experienced the worldwide pandemic with COVID-19 in 2020. So an illness that affects an exceptionally high proportion of the population in a wide geographic area. 3 criteria for a pandemic. Nearly simultaneous transmission occurs worldwide and is rapidly spread worldwide. It's always interesting to me to look back in retrospect how quickly COVID-19 spread from parts of the world to other parts of the world. I mean, it was just so quickly. I remember my Macy's parents were in Portugal at the time, and COVID hit Portugal, and then within days to weeks, it was in the United States. So that was kind of interesting. A pandemic has to infect humans, causing severe illness is the criteria. So I would just remember that severe could be widespread, or it could be a depth of illness. So just be thoughtful about that. And then it is easily spread and sustained among humans. Examples: HIV, swine flu, cholera, smallpox, tuberculosis, and then the most recent one was COVID-19. So we should probably add that into these slides. And then reporting communicable diseases, there are laws that say, we need to report certain medical conditions if it is a communicable disease to protect the public from an outbreak. And again, that was kind of put on light during COVID. So I'm going to use this first video to go into a few of these specific infectious diseases, and then I'll cut it out. So I'm going to go through until measles. So I'll go right up until chickenpox, and then I'll do a second video for that back half. Okay, so the first up is the flu. In the United States, seasonal influenza has caused approximately 49,000 deaths and 200,000 hospitalization every year. The flu continues to be rampant. There's the A strain and the B strain. And then inside of those strains, there are just many different subclassifications. So anyway, remember, these are viruses. Viruses are so tough to predict and contain. And that's one reason the flu is so impactful, widespread, as a virus, it's just difficult to predict what's going to happen. Excuse me. People are contagious usually for about a week. And then what happens every year on the flu vaccine is, the United States will watch what happens in the wintertime in the southern equator. And so based on those identified strains, they'll try to go through and immunize particularly those that are susceptible to the flu: older individuals, people with chronic diseases, people with autoimmune disorders. Hopefully they can get those individuals a vaccination and decrease the symptoms and hopefully prevent it. Symptoms of the flu: headache, fever, runny nose, sore throat, body aches, tired, right? Body aches again, diarrhea, vomiting. So I think we've seen the flu. What do? Rest. Anyone who's had the flu knows what do? We got to rest. It's exhausting. Drink fluids, stay hydrated. Try to keep that fever down when and where possible. And then as the athletes get better, they can return to play. The next up is mononucleosis. Again, this is a virus. So mononucleosis, it is a virus that attacks lymphocytes and cells of the body. It's carried in saliva secretion. So amongst adolescents, and on up, sharing drinks and sharing utensils is a common way to pass mono. I know it's often called the kissing disease as well. So if you're going around kissing a lot of people, then that's just one thing to be thoughtful of. 90% of adults over the 50 years have evidence of mono. It's pretty common. And then it has a fairly long incubation period. Here's the question: common occurrence in college-age athletes. Why? Living in tight quarters, sharing drinks. Again, maybe there's some relations happening amongst various sorts. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so it's common. Signs and symptoms of mono. That spleen, be thoughtful of the spleen. It can become enlarged, and if the spleen becomes enlarged, that is a reason for an athlete to have to sit if they play a contact sport. We do not want a laceration or a rupture of that spleen. Also, in signs and symptoms, you may notice white spotting on the tonsils and atypical white blood cell patterns. Biggest sign and symptom of mono is fatigue. Someone is just exhausted. In some of the cases, we'll have a enlarged spleen, sometimes an enlarged liver. Okay, I didn't mean to do that. And then I'll keep going down here. So if we suspect mono, we might refer, and amongst the team, athletes should avoid sharing drinking cups or mouth contact with the shared water bottles. So you guys know, we've talked about this, all of these infectious diseases just spread through a team like wildfire. And so anyway, if mono becomes prevalent, we should take steps to limit the transmission of any of these, including mono. Treatment: rest, stay hydrated. If we notice a fever or other symptoms that are uncomfortable, we might treat with some Tylenol. Avoid NSAIDs due to effect on the liver, which is associated with mono. So like I said, sometimes you can have an enlarged liver. So it's better just jump with Tylenol first, and then once you figure out what's happening on the inside, then you can change your plan of attack. The reference here is about 2 months. So if you have an athlete with mono, I would refer and then rely upon the doctor in the controlled physical activity idea. So return to play, 1% mortality rate due to complications. That actually seems a little high, but and then we need to make sure that there is no enlarged spleen and that the athletes are ready to go. Here's one of the infectious diseases that feels a little bit funny to talk about in the United States. So mumps. Remember the MMR shot, mumps, measles, rubella. So this is a infectious disease that we've had a vaccine for that has been very effective. And mumps nowadays in the United States is for the most part a thing of the past. This is a viral disease. It infects the parotid and salivary glands. So you'll notice some swelling there, parotid and the salivary and parotid glands. It may go into other glands as well. Spread through the air via infected droplets as well as through direct contact with contaminated saliva in younger children. So vaccines have almost eradicated this disease, which is good. Pain with chewing, swallowing, asymmetry in the jaw. So you saw those pictures there. We probably don't have to talk too much about this. It's good to get your MMR vaccine. When and where possible, I would encourage individuals to pursue that MMR vaccine. It's a really good one. If you notice someone that is unvaccinated or starts to develop these symptoms of mumps in general, refer immediately. And then they will likely be isolated until that starts to go down. and then over time they'll come back into play. So another one this one actually has come up recently, measles. So rubella, acute contagious virus, very, very infectious. Measles is so infectious. So just to tell you how infectious it was, before immunization, more than 90% of the population was infected by the age of 20. So 9 out of 10 individuals had measles by the age of 20. Spread through airborne droplets again, acquired through mother-to-child transmission of blood exchange, so lots of ways to get it. I actually have a graphic I want to pull up. The incubation period was a couple weeks, and then what would happen was a rash would come on, followed by signs of a fever, signs of the flu, so fever, body aches, etc. Ask if someone's been immunized, and go from there. It's kind of interesting recently, let me pull this up, that we have actually had a measles outbreak in the United States recently. So U.S. cases in 2025, 1,088, which is not very many, but it's more compared to what we're used to in recent years. And there's a graphic down below that I want to show you. So notice who it's affecting. Okay, typically younger, and then on from there. In particular, this is staggering. So 96% of those 1,088 cases were unvaccinated or unknown. 1 MMR dose and then 2. So, like I said, vaccine doses are not always 100% effective. And that's hopefully where herd immunity comes in. But if you're in a group, the more you're around it, if your vaccine was not 100% effective, then your chance of contracting the disease goes up. Let me come down here. So weekly measles cases by rash onset date, this is all the way back. So you'll notice we had a slight uptick in 2024 in the spring, but then February through here, we just had a huge swing, and hopefully we're on the way down here with the measles. You'll notice map of measles cases in 2024 and 2025. It initiated in Texas and then kind of spread from there. You'll notice here in Utah we had 0 cases. I was actually monitoring the measles outbreak a little bit the past, through the early springtime when cases were kind of high through February, just because my daughter, who is under 1, has not had the mumps, measles, rubella vaccine. And so I wanted to know if there was a confirmed case in Utah. And if there was, then we probably would have had discussions about getting that MMR vaccine. And then you'll see yearly measles cases. So it's, it kind of ramps. So you'll notice 2019 there was the last time we kind of had an outbreak. And then here in 2025 was our most recent outbreak. So kind of some interesting data from the CDC. They usually put together pretty good graphics and things like that. So anyway, that finishes this first portion of infectious diseases, and then I'll cover this second half in a second video.